Hey, welcome back to the Awwshift podcast. Your host, Anthony Trucks. Today's guest is Rick Jordan. Now, Rick is a guy that he has done a lot, man. And I'm talking a lot of amazing things. And when I say amazing, he's accomplished a lot without being given a lot. You know, whenever you have individuals that have had to climb out of the bottoms to create something, and he had a great childhood, don't get me wrong, but he didn't come from a lot of money, we'll call it. But he built to a level of having the income to create an amazing life and create amazing impact on other lives, which is, gosh, it's what we make money for, right? You do things to create lifestyles and engagement and positivity. He talks about it a lot. Money is a tool, right? And so when we talk to this discussion, it's going to be really a deeper conversation about money, a deeper conversation about life and humanity. It's a fun one, man. In fact, he said it was one of his favorite conversations in the last 6 months, and it was definitely one of mine as well. So without further ado, let's hop into the show and meet Mr. Rick Jordan. Hey, welcome into the show. I'm excited to dive into this because we had a little, we'll call it brief intro conversation. I like the way that this man thinks. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Rick Jordan. How you doing, man?
What's shaking, my man? Thanks for having me on, dude.
Thank you for coming on and gracing us with your presence. I look forward to people that have, here's the thing, I look forward to talking to people who've accomplished things that many people sometimes probably scoff at, like, oh, he's not real. Like, because what happens is you can either criticize or you can rise, right? And if you just criticize, you never get the chance at that higher level. And so people like you, I like to dig into so people can hear not just the success and how to get it, but also the heart of the human, because it's not a heartless thing. It's just a transparency thing. We all want this thing in life, and some people are honest enough to go tell you what it is. So I start the podcast with a simple question, and then I will stop talking as much as I am. I'll let you talk way more. But here's the question. I'm walking around town. I happen to sit down at this coffee shop. You're sitting next to me. I don't know you. For some reason, you feel compelled to turn and start talking to me. In your opinion, why should I listen to you?
Just because I love people, man. And I'm not anybody if I'm not talking to other people. I think that our purpose on this planet is to interact with others.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people will get into the introvert and extrovert thing, regardless whether you're an introvert or not, right? I'm obviously an extrovert, right? I don't know if you've taken like 16 personalities or anything, was like, you're a 99% extrovert. It's like, tell me something I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? But still, introverts, it doesn't matter where you're at or what you're doing on this planet. You are here to interact and to have relationships with other people, period. Right? That's how resources go around. You're not here just to stay to yourself. In a resource perspective, you are here to give what you have to everybody else around you, and that gets reciprocated back.
I like it, man. That's a good way to think of it. I always love that one statement. It says the rent we should pay to live on this planet is the service to others. And it is. It's even biologically we're connected in a way or designed in a way to do this. Like the fact that I can have a thought in my head that makes air come out of my lungs, that vibrates vocal cords, that comes out of my mouth into your ears and creates a thought, like that's not by random design, right? That's a unique damn trait, man. So let's do this. I love what you've done. And as opposed to me sitting here going like, he's done this and this and this and this, I'd love for you to share, and we'll call this the non-bashful, like just, hey, let it all hang out. What are the things that you've accomplished that you are the most proud of?
It's funny when you said, I love what you've done. My immediate question was, well, what thing are you talking about? Because I'm like, there's so many things.
Yeah.
And I say that just as a matter of fact, not in arrogance, because if you want to call me that cliche, the serial entrepreneur, but it's, I don't like that phrase so much because it like screams out ADD or non-focus, right? I like to think of it more as like I go where I'm needed in the moment. And so, I mean, even down to like making a movie about the lockdown 3 years ago, right? When COVID hit, it was like, all right, this came across my plate. Like, sure, I'll jump on it. Right. The business is doing great. Everybody's like sitting in their house right now. There's not much that's going to happen for the next 3 months. I can devote 6 weeks to go filming a documentary on what's going on. It was pretty cool because that opened up some other doors even just in itself. So, I mean, that's one thing, right? As an example, it's like you just go where you're needed. And I think that's a huge factor for people to help find their purpose. And as I'm thinking about this too, I get the question a lot. It's like, because I have a lot of younger people that work for me, right, in my company. and they're in their 20s, and they're like, well, how did you figure out what you were supposed to do? And it's like, I just did things.
Did things.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and it's literally that it just crossed my path, and I'm like,
Yep.
okay, I'll try this now.
Yeah. And you know, what's funny is I've always told people I think life is a really unique plan for us and we mess it up. We don't
Yeah,
try
yeah.
things, we shut down. And I like what you're talking to because actually people ask me that question too. I speak and coach. Well, how do you find your purpose? How do you find your thing? And I go, man, 10 years ago, I was a football player. I thought I was going to be an NFL football player. I was going to retire doing that. And then I got
Yeah.
done. I was like, I was going to do a gym thing because I have my degree in kinesiology, novel idea for an athlete to do fitness. And consulting and speaking and so it's a
Yeah.
whole flow. But I go, here's what I found. It always starts with a curiosity. The curiosity leads into some time spent in something without worrying about the time. I get oddly passionate about it. And as I'm doing this thing with passion, I stumble into a pothole of purpose somewhat.
Yeah, yeah.
But you got to dabble and try and dance. And then you realize like maybe my purpose isn't this, but it's to continue to keep seeking the next purpose of the day or the year or whatever it is from the things you've developed as skill sets.
Right on. That's similar to like Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, right? Everybody knows him from
Yeah.
Dirty Jobs, And it's like, why did you do this? And it's like, people are like, I got to find the thing that I love or whatever. And it's like, well, sure. But if you look at the way that he looks at things, he goes, I found something that I was good at.
Yeah.
Then I learned to love it. Then I got rich.
Yeah. Yeah. If you love it, you'll do it, right?
Yeah.
I think there's something to the idea nowadays of people wanting everything should be easy and smooth. I should always feel good. Like, nah, you shouldn't. Like, I don't think that's because then there's
Dude,
no
there's some
pride
days
in the
that suck.
accomplishment. There's a lot of days. I was telling my son yesterday, I go, we got to figure a way to get you to do something that you don't want to do, even if you don't want to do it. Like, you may not want to do it, you still got to do it as if you love it. But I would fake it, but you got to, because that's how you get great things. Those who don't do that, they don't get the stuff you want.
Yeah. I try to stay fit, obviously, right? And this is a metaphor that everybody can go towards. It was a day last week, and it's typically like 3 days on, 1 day off is what I'll do. With different muscle groups. It's all free weights. There was a night to where I just could not sleep, man. And you know how this is, right? From your training, if you get 3 hours of sleep, your muscles are going to feel like shit in the morning. They just are, right? When you wake up. So, but that's the day. Like, I woke up, I go to eat my breakfast because that's part of my routine. Is I immediately eat, then I work out. Light meal right before I work out. And I'm thinking, it's like, I'm starting to wrestle with myself. It's like, maybe I shouldn't because, I didn't get much sleep. My muscles are already sore from this and everything. I'm like, no, today is the day to work out and to train even harder because of the night that I just had. So in those moments, I mean, dude, it sucked. And that was a hard workout. That was a really difficult workout, just having 3 hours of sleep. But my mind was on like, man, this day is going to be horrible because I only had 3 hours of sleep. I mean, the negative self-talk, dude. I mean, people like you and I who have accomplished a lot, right? Because I've got a company that's going public. I've made movies, got a podcast that's all over the world, got a great personal brand. I have 75 people as of last week, the recent acquisition, that work for me, in the company. So it's like, there's a lot of stuff that looks great, but still those days happen. And this is what we're talking about. Those days happen to where I still give myself a healthy dose of negative self-talk.
Yep, happens. It's human. And the thing is, the longer you sit in it, the longer it lasts. Like those days, I think I had to battle after sports, the fitness stuff too. And there's something intimate about the training thing. It's the one thing that's like, it's just connected. I can see on somebody whether or not you take care of your body. And you're right, man. The days you got to do it, the days you don't want to. But there is something that happens when you get that thing done and you step out of it and you feel like a superhero. Like, I'm a badass now, right? And you need to have that day.
Dude, I felt back on track. Yeah, and I was supposed. I mean, I was in a city for a company that I just acquired, right? And that was the day of like meet the CEO day. So it was just 3 hours the night before of sleep. That's it. And I'm like, oh man, today's gonna suck. I have to speak, which I'm good at. I know that, but I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna be that great today, right? Because I only got 3 hours of sleep. But then I pushed myself to get in the gym at the hotel, and coming out of there, I'm like, all right, I'm cool. Let's do this.
Here's your thing. Dude, this happened to me just last week, man. I went to Indy for a speech and I landed. I don't know why, but sometimes like you roll around, you're like, gosh, I've been rolling around for a little bit and it's got to be like an hour. I look at the clock, it's 3:45 in the morning. I'm like, this has been like 5 hours of rolling around. And then I'm like, all right, I got to go to sleep. And I get back up and it's like, it's maybe an hour. It's like 7:15. I got to get up and I got to leave the hotel at 9:30. I can sleep longer, or I always get up and go to the gym before any speech. And so I get up and go to the gym. I'm telling myself, like, the same thing. Like, it's going to suck. And then you just go hard. And then you show up on the stage, you feel good. And then all of a sudden, I actually had more energy than I did previously. But it is.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
But the majority of people, you're right, will slide out of that. They'll eat the excuse up, and they'll make a good reason to not do it, and they'll feel good about themselves. They can, go. But the truth is, they don't get to be a great level. Now,
Right on.
question: do you always have that? Was that something was always built in you, or did you build that?
I had to build that over time, man. And it's
Yeah.
as a work ethic, I've always had great work ethic, but
Mhm.
taking care of my body, that was a shift in my life.
Yeah.
It was years ago because I grew up not understanding nutrition. I grew up not understanding fitness, and I was
Mhm.
just typical middle class kid. The parents did not make that much money. We never really lacked as far as like the basic needs in life, shelter, food, and all of that. The
Yeah.
difficulties were more like our food was like mac and cheese, right?
Yeah.
Like
Gotcha.
spaghetti and meatballs, or a lot of it was like frozen stuff, like these
Mhm.
frozen, I'll never forget, dude, these frozen Salisbury steaks. I can't
I
remember
remember
the,
those.
dude,
Yeah. A
they're
little colorful
gross
kids package
AF.
too.
Yeah. And now I look back, it's like, oh my God, I was putting that stuff into my body. And I
Yeah.
think it's like, how did I even survive that? But I remember also, this is something I usually never talk about, but
Mhm.
I would have like this because there would be five of us right in the family, and it would be a package of 6 Salisbury steaks, and you're talking these things were like maybe a sixth of a pound, not a lot of
Yeah.
beef.
They're tiny.
Plus, it was poor quality stuff, right? For
Yeah. Gravy
5
all over
people
it.
that were there. Yeah, exactly. For 5 people, but then I would chug like 3 16-ounce glasses of milk before
Mm.
like protein shakes were even around, but that's how I would
Yeah.
fill myself,
Yeah.
so it'd be like a gallon a day of milk is what we went through in the household. And it
Yeah.
was mostly
Dang.
because of me, dude, because I would just chug it. That's where I got my
What's going
protein,
on?
right? That's where I got
Yeah.
everything from. Was that like looking back and reflecting now, that's kind of the thing.
Mm.
But it's like to piggyback on what we were just saying, it's like I think what people need to get out of the conversation right now that you and I are talking about these days, because we can sit here and we can be like, yeah, we made it through, we
So
pushed
bad. This
through.
and
Come
this. I'm
on,
great. Yeah.
you
Mhm.
you, you know you got to do that, be like us. And it's like the point that I think you and I are both trying to make is that the days are still going to happen, and it's okay to have the bad days.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
your responsibility to yourself to actually show yourself respect is to not let that bad day turn into a bad week, or a
Oh,
bad
yeah.
week turn into a bad month.
Mhm.
And that's where, like, even with the negative self-talk that you and I have, that we still fall victim to at some point in time, we don't allow ourselves to become the abuser as well. Because when you allow yourself to be a victim to yourself, you're both the abuser and the victim
Yeah.
in that scenario.
Yep.
So you
No,
can
dude, I wholly
take
agree.
away the victimhood by removing that other side of the equation and saying, I'm going to get back on this train, whatever that looks like for whoever's listening, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's getting into the gym, whether it's, picking up the book in the morning, whether it's eating the breakfast, whether it's getting in your car and going to the office, whatever it is, get back onto your normal rhythm
Yeah.
so that that bad day doesn't turn into a bad week, month, year.
Yeah. Dude, that's gold right there. And that I literally live this every day. I explain to people all the time because a lot of the work I do is I'm guiding, executives and clients, and a lot of it is that like I fell off, and then yeah, you're all of a sudden they had a bad part of the meal, and then it's the bad rest of the week of the meal, and then a bad month. And it's like, dude, just get back on. Now I notice this with people when I haven't worked with them, and I kind of have a conversation. Usually, the discipline is discipline to an emotion. I mean, they do it when they feel like it. Now, I'm curious, how much you discipline to a plan, a structure? Like, do you have a calendar that's dialed in, or you kind of have like a good flow of how you feel? I'm just curious how this is for you.
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I started something about 2 years ago called time blocking.
Yep,
And
same.
after I had started it, I saw a Harvard article, like from Harvard Business Review or something, that's out of 100 ways, that's the number one way to stay disciplined during the
Hmm.
day. And
Yeah.
there's different people that like different things. Like certain people will like calendar scheduled to the minute, right?
Hmm.
And as I'm the CEO of a larger company now, I mean, we went from like 1 million, we finally broke a million in revenue like 4 years ago.
Hmm.
And now we're approaching 20 in just four
Hmm.
years. So it's like getting to 1 million took 10 years, dude,
Yeah.
And then
Right.
like the acceleration happened after that. Once I
Hmm.
learned, I had to get over some of my own stuff in order to break through those barriers and those revenue plateaus.
Hmm.
But some executives I know, or just some people in general, like even moms, right? They'll like to have the day planned out to the minute, and that works
Hmm.
for some people. For me, I need a little more fluidity,
Yeah. I
which
get
is
it.
why time blocking works so well for me. I'll do Mondays are my days to prepare for the week. So if it's in the
Hmm.
business, it's doing one-on-ones with my people. I do a CEO talk every morning on the Mondays that goes
Yeah.
out to the entire company. It's broadcast live. That's how I maintain culture. At least
Hmm.
one way that I try to do it. But then I
Right.
do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays in the mornings are reserved for internal. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like us, literally right now, right? Wednesday
Yeah.
afternoon is reserved for external. So that can be
Right.
podcasts, that can be, external vendor meetings, maybe an acquisition, whatever it
Hmm.
is, and forming new connections, events, whatever, man. And then
Yeah.
Fridays are just just a day that's open for whatever I might need to kind of fill the
Right.
week out.
Yeah, I like that. My Tuesdays usually, wife and I do workouts Monday and Wednesday mornings, or sorry,
Oh,
Monday and
cool.
Friday mornings. She does track. I'm doing master's track with her.
Yeah,
And yeah, kind of the same flow. Tuesday's usually
that's
a day of
awesome.
just creation. Whatever I got to create, develop, like build content. It's just kind of, it's my
Yeah,
thing. I'm gonna go at my own pace. I'm gonna tick away. The other days, like these are podcast days, like your Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is kind of the same first half. And then the second half of the day, I try to get like a good, like tightening up of the week on a Friday so I could pick my kids up
yeah,
and be dad.
yep.
So I
I
like that.
feel
And I
you.
was asking that because most people I find like when they fall off track, they can't get back on because there was no rhythm. You said the word rhythm and I loved it. There's no rhythm they're already setting. They're
Yeah,
just kind of like, I'm gonna feel good. I'm gonna get things done. I'm right. And then all of a sudden the emotion disappears and then the actions disappear. And all of a sudden the
yeah.
life goes downhill. When you noticed yourself doing this time blocking, what was the uptick? Now, obviously you said 4 years ago, was it a couple of years of kind of, getting a good tick, or was it always taking, like, what happened that you can go like, dude, this wouldn't have happened if I wasn't time blocking?
Any of this, literally anything where I'm at right now. I'm talking going public. I'm talking the show, the podcast, getting the word is. I'm grateful. It's like 4.5 years now into the show, like 400 episodes, man. It's like top 2% in the world, and that's no promotion whatsoever. But exactly when it started to take off though is when because I used to like schedule these things all over the place, and it wasn't the case because when we pushed to 2 episodes a week, it was a shift, right? To make shift happen, we that was the shift that we had 2 years ago, doubled the downloads. I mean, it was a nice strategy because I already had a good following on it. Yeah, but then when we were bringing on so many guests at the time, I mean, it was like two guests a week, and I felt like I was doing nothing but podcasting, and I saw that even the business was suffering and even my family was suffering. There was just almost no time to do anything. So I'm like, I need to designate, and I didn't read an article on this. It was just clear. Yeah, it's like I need to have this stuff grouped in certain areas. So this is what I'm going to do, right? And that it's been that way now for a couple of years with the time blocks that I gave you. I It's funny because what I saw in some of my people too, right, like surrounding me, is that at first it was a little bit difficult. Like if you have a team, right, it was a little bit difficult for them to adjust. I'm like, this is what I need to do in order to lead effectively, in order to have us, because I'm seeing areas that are suffering, and I need to get my own stuff corrected first, and then we can figure out everything else. So if I get into this rhythm with time blocking, I know that else is going to fall into place because then I won't be scattered all over the place or pulled in 18 different directions. And it's like the thing, it's like people start to use the word priorities. I hate the word priorities, man, because there's so many things that can be important at one time. So it's like, how do you decide between, you know, it's almost an impossible decision sometimes between spending time with your kids and doing what's going to leave the legacy for them. And that internal struggle is something that also I will always continue to battle with. So it comes with moment to moment, but time blocking helped that to where I can actually dedicate those moments of those days towards different things that all matter in my life.
Yeah.
There's priorities, but all those things are a priority.
Yeah, they all fit in there. That's I literally schedule time with my wife, time with my kids, like, it all
Yeah,
becomes part of it. I've been doing this, I think 2011, somebody kind of introduced me to the idea. The last kind of 5 years, I really settled it in, and it's allowed me to have a lot of peace. I tell people I can conclude a day and be at peace with the pieces.
yeah.
Whatever was
There you
supposed
go.
to be
I love
done
that.
during that time, right? And which is also why it's so incredibly important that if the day says to do this, I don't, like, obviously you can have them, but like I don't get to have bad days. I can't have off days. So I've got to be dialed in structure. So if I wake up like just, last night, I had one of these weird nights. I didn't sleep really well. And it
Yeah,
was nothing more than like I'm battling with my youngest son and some stuff for him. And I'm gonna have to coach these kids. And then he didn't make this all-star team, but I got to coach the all-star team. And it's because of his lack of effort. This is weird stuff. I just didn't sleep well, but I didn't get to wake up today and go like, all right, I'm just gonna hop on and go, hey, Rick, I had a bad day. Like, I don't get the gift to do that.
yeah.
It's
No
not how I
joke,
can
man.
operate.
I
You just
feel
rock,
you
you got to rock and roll,
there.
right? But some people will. Some people go like, "Oh, I had a bad day, so it's why." Like, I don't. If you want to be great, man, be great.
Yeah, yeah.
You just go
Exactly.
up and you do, and it'll all figure itself out. Because now I'm good and I'm in a great mood because I chose to do that. Now, part of the time block and the kind of is built up to a point where you've done some amazing things. You've kind of alluded to some stuff, and you, before we started, had talked to a couple of things that are going on. I'd love for you to share, kind of like you said, what's going on, what you're excited about, and I want to kind of poke in and find some areas we can
Yeah.
extract some human lessons from the experience.
That's cool. You bet, man. I by trade, and I've gone through, I say by trade, but there's been many things in my life. And this is another thing that I just sort of fell into was technology. I actually started my, if you want to say professional career, I'm
Mhm.
talking after the McDonald's job, right? Because I was an assistant manager at McDonald's. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about after McDonald's. Then I became the youngest store manager in Radio Shack history at the time. As soon as I
Mhm.
turned 18 years old, I was given my own store. But that's
Wow.
because I sold really well, dude. I love,
Gotcha.
and people can find this on Instagram on my show where I tell the story about how when I was 17 over Christmas, I made a $30,000 commission check from selling cell phones, in
Wow.
like
Wow.
1997. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a lot for a 17-year-old dude to kind
Yeah.
of walk away in a month with
Heck yeah.
30K.
Yeah, bro. Right.
It changed my perspective on a lot of things, and it was just that was consistency and discipline too, because I go back to like my story. Another story I love telling is like McDonald's, right? It's like, how do I sell? Well, do you want fries with that? There's always the opportunity for the upsell. There's always the opportunity to bring more value. There's always the opportunity to allow them the choice of something additional, right? And
Mhm.
that's the best way to sell, man. But then I moved from Radio Shack into doing like enterprise level IT. Because I moved into like working in a warehouse for a bit, but then they're like, you're kind of smart. Can you come here? So I was trained on the job with Merrill Lynch, and
Mhm.
I loaded, built 15,000 servers, 120 something thousand computers, and
Wow.
rolled it out to their branch offices across the country.
Mhm.
And that was getting my feet wet in technology. And then I moved on to Geek Squad. I was the very first Geek Squad agent in
That's right.
Chicago, right?
Really?
And that
Yeah.
was fun. Dude, I got photos, man. I got a big old gut. I don't got the gut anymore, thank God, right? But I mean, that I was like this typical sort of IT guy, but that was the
Yeah.
same thing. It's like out of a test store, corporate was always that. It's like, why are your per ticket amounts, your dollar amounts, 3 times higher than the other 6 test markets that we have? And I
Mhm.
went back to the same thing. It's like, well, do you want fries with that? You ever go to McDonald's?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if I'm there in
Well, not
front of somebody,
frequently, but yeah, better.
yeah, if I'm ever in front of somebody, like in their house or in their business when I was there, it's like, why shouldn't I ask them if there's something else that I can do?
Mhm.
Or if I see something that I can do, be like, hey, I'll take care of this while we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and I think we talked about like a little bit pre-show, right? People's relationship with money, a little
Yeah.
bit, and
Mhm.
this is an area where I think that there's some toxicity in individuals' relationship with money, especially
Yeah.
salespeople, because
Right.
there's a phrase that I learned about people selling with their own wallets, and
I've heard, yeah, I know what you mean.
they're
I've had a guy,
scared to
yeah.
ask, dude, because
I
they're
had a guy
thinking,
who
well,
like
I wouldn't
really
spend the money. Well, it's like,
boom.
are you providing value? Well, then
Yeah.
if you're providing value and you're providing a service or you're giving a product, it's just a fair exchange. That's all it
Yeah.
is,
Mhm.
right? And you're actually doing that person a disservice. You are disrespecting them by not offering that additional value when it's something that you could provide to them.
Yeah.
I mean,
So I
that's
had a
just
gym where I had a guy do this, a salesperson, and it was struggling, wasn't making any money. I go, "What is going on?" He goes, "Well, I can't even afford this stuff. So how can I get them to buy it?" I go,
bingo.
"Do you think the people that sell Rolls Royces are affording a Rolls Royce? Like usually not. But you still sell it because it can
Yeah.
help them. It was the craziest thing. But you're right. People, I've never heard of it said like that. I love that you said it like
People
that.
buy with their own, or they'll sell with their own wallets. Yeah.
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 Wow. That's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
I
I
don't
just
think
think
I made that up. I think that's something I heard a long time. I won't take
I
credit
haven't
for it.
heard it
It's a
till
good one
now.
though. I'll keep saying it
It's a
though.
really good one.
You
Tells me a
too.
lot about things you battle with. And yeah, salespeople are always an interesting thing. Even if it's not a salesperson, yourself, like
Yeah.
you yourself selling yourself, that's a big piece of it too.
Yeah,
And
man.
what was your original kind of conversation or thought with money before it's changed to what it is now?
Oh, prior to anything I just told you, I use this example all the time. My parents had an amazing relationship. My dad passed away when I was just 16, so I actually had,
Mhm.
I'm grateful versus my brother and sister who were just 10 and 11. I mean, that's rough too. But I got to know my parents a little bit longer, right? Because I was a little bit older. And the only thing, amazing relationship they had, the only thing I ever really saw them fight over, like knockdown, drag out fights. I mean, I'm not talking like the little tiffs that couples get into, right? Or the arguments. Again, people have bad days, right? Uh, Amazing marriage from my perspective. They had an amazing marriage. I had a great childhood. And I saw them, the only fights they really ever had were over money, or really like the lack of. So rather than having any sort of lack, I started thinking really, really young. It's like, well, lack kind of sucks. I mean, that's what my observation was in those 16 years of my life. It's like, Why would I ever want to be in a position of lack? And that I learned as becoming more emotionally mature, and I learned that that is actually a choice to be in a position of lack. And I'm not talking about external circumstances, right? But lack has to do with resources, which I would believe. I don't believe that lack has to do with a shortage of money, right? Money is the tool that will provide you the resources that then get you the things that you want. So default, right? You kind of have to be rich to have the life that you want. Because you want to do things, but in order to do things, you have to have things, even like fitness, like we were talking about, right? You have to have a gym, you have to have equipment, you have to have a gym membership, which requires those resources that require money to get. So if you're in a position of lack anywhere around there, you're not going to have what you want. So rather than focusing, like I saw with my parents, right? Because they would fight over the lack. Like, well, what if there's no lack? Or what if there's a gap, right? Gap is different to me than a lack, because gap is temporary to me, right? There's something that you can fill, versus lack is something that you can actually, I feel it's a negative force, and you can actually put focus on that in a very bad way. Well, what if there's no lack? That's the question that I ask myself. Then what would I do? And that's the whole thing, because you might be in a place right now, not necessarily you, but people that are listening, to where you don't think that you can obtain what you really want. All right. Well, what if you had everything you needed to get that? What would you start doing? And if you start thinking down that path, it's like, cool, how can I then make shift happen? Right?
Mm-hmm.
How can I start to go in that
stuff.
direction to cause that? And then, rather than focusing on the lack, you're actually focusing on abundance and obtaining the stuff that you need, the resources that you need in order to get what you want.
I agree, man. There's a guy named, versus the TV show American Gladiator.
Oh yeah, dude. I used to watch it all the time with my dad. Yeah.
There you go. Remember Nitro?
Nitro. Yep.
Yeah, dude.
He was the dude.
He's a great guy, man. I had him on the podcast a little while back. They actually had a new a Netflix mini doc.
Is he like 60 something now, bro?
I don't know. He might be in his late 50s, early 60s. He's probably early 60s, yeah. But he's still in shape, man. He gets down. But he said this one thing in a podcast I love, and he says, "Action ends suffering." I don't know where he got it from, but like what you're talking to kind of is that thing, right? It's we suffer, we have lack, I grew up the same way. I was a guy that, like, my family, when Goodwill didn't want the clothes for the rack, like, they give the bags away. We were the people that got the bags sometimes. I got one pair of shoes all year. I would lace up my Nike Cortez with paper clips because I was running holes in the side by being a little active kid. And so he said that, and it's true, because a lot of the time, and here's the thing, it's not that a positive action, a joyful action, the action you want to take will end the suffering. It's an action will. And typically, you're not going to feel like doing it. You just have to do it. And so what you're talking to is like, yeah, you can have lack, but that doesn't have to be a death sentence. You can go do something about it. But most people, I find that most people will, they'll fight for the limitation. I think Gay Hendricks says, if you fight for limitation, you get to keep it. And people will fight for that poverty and that limitation all the time, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's like Stockholm syndrome almost, right?
Yeah.
You get used to that position and you get rewired that way, but then you start to get down on yourself. It's like, then it becomes an issue of self-worth. I think that's really what causes people to get stuck in that, to where, as you're saying, and I love that phrase, as you're fighting for the limitation. It's an issue of self-worth, so if you start to look back at your life, and again, I'll say it again, I had a great childhood, extremely supportive parents, very supportive. And I know there's a lot that have not had the joy of that specific thing, right? They might have been abusive parents or absent parents. I didn't go through that. So if you did, though, obviously you can make that shift in your life for your kids, because you can recognize same way that I did. If I saw like the lack of money was the only thing that caused my parents to fight, that lack, it's like, cool, then what if I had no lack? Right? So you can ask the same question. What if my kids had a parent that was present, that was around, that did support them, that always built them up, that worked on their self-esteem, right? And that feeds into social media issues too, dude. I love going on the news and talking about the algorithm and the whole body shaming thing, because I fight back, right? It's like politically, I'm kind of like right down the middle, but I loved when I was on, I think it was Newsmax, and I went head to head with Bob Sellers, the anchor. And he was like, he's going after big tech because Newsmax is very hardcore right wing, right? I'm talking like almost like, MAGA, Tea Party, that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
And he's like, yeah, but what about big tech? Aren't they responsible? I'm like, dude, if you really want to go there, let's talk about responsible parenting.
Yeah, man.
The issues with kids, right? And this is full circle. The issues with kids on social media have to do with self-esteem,
Mhm.
self-worth. If you build that up in your kids when they're young, they're not going to have any issues with any algorithm because they're
I
not
agree.
going to feed that negative void in their life that the parents failed in those
Mhm.
moments to fill. And I
Did you read the
understand.
article this morning about it?
What's that? This
You read
morning?
the
No.
article this morning? Oh, wow. I was
Was there
like,
one out there this morning?
I thought you must have read it. So today, I think there was 41 new states, actually 41 states, did new lawsuits against Facebook, which, Meta/Facebook, because of that, because they're
Nice.
saying that all the numbers show there's a higher level of,
Oh, is this the
30% kids.
misinformation?
Not so much the
Okay.
misinformation, but it's saying that all the mental health issues, there's more suicide,
Interesting. Yeah.
threats, and they're saying that it's social media's fault because they knowingly have this platform out, and because of the comparison. And my wife and I just had this conversation before she took off, and I sent it to her, and I go, the issue isn't the social media platform. It's
Yeah.
that these kids I think part of it is, yes, there's not that being built in the kids how great you are with their parents, or subjecting them to situations to have them do something they're proud of. But I think also part of it is like you're in a situation where you have these people that are just, it's not the social media platform's fault that your kid is spending 5 hours on these
Yeah.
things just to suck their soul.
Yeah.
Like, so you can't, it's like, it's weird. It's like saying, you know what? Let's now go after McDonald's because you're fat. That's
Yeah.
what we're saying.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do
Exactly.
that. It's
Yeah.
just, but that's, yeah, it's crazy. That's what's going on with it all. It's so odd.
That
I
is
thought you just
crazy.
read that like I did. I
No,
was
the
like,
one I
oh,
did read this morning though was about the Supreme Court is now hearing the case because it was Florida and Texas that have
mm,
appealed now to get to the Supreme Court about misinformation. Really
mm,
about censorship, and
yeah, it's
that's
different.
there
Yeah.
right now. Yeah, because they're trying to say, hey, social media should not have the ability to delete tweets, delete
I
posts,
agree.
any of that. Yeah, I'm with them on
Yeah,
that. I mean, what's the point of free speech, right? If it becomes
I agree.
arbitrary, I'm
I think it
completely
has
in
to do with the
support of that.
administration. Yeah, there was something they were trying to do where the administration was trying to pull stuff down too, and that's what it was. The social media shouldn't be able to, but it's a
Dude, there's
crazy
proof of
rabbit hole we
that.
can go down.
Working
Yeah,
working
there
with
is.
the FBI and then the pressure from the FBI, like in the last
Yeah,
election cycle. I mean, that
yeah,
stuff's
it
all
was
over Netflix. Go just watch Netflix. There's documentaries on there about that
everything's
stuff.
out there,
Yeah.
right? It's crazy. It is crazy. But then the thing that also part of that, we go, let's not blame ourselves, right? So
Yeah.
I think there is something to go back to even with our conversation about the money stuff, is like taking a personal ownership.
Yeah.
Like having your own sense of like, you know what, this is all going on, but I gotta be the boat in this ocean, but I gotta be the one with the rudder. Like, I gotta be in control of this thing. When you kind of look back, were there any times when you kind of were like, felt like you weren't in control and things weren't like kind of where you wanted to be? And like, did getting control help you? Which I'm assuming it's a yes.
Yeah.
And what did that look like for you? So someone listening can go like, oh, that's what it could look like for me.
Yeah, it is what I was saying because the only thing that really gets to me ever, and I'm an extremely positive person. I mean, people will tell me it's like you're the most positive person I've ever met. I'm like, that's great.
Mhm.
That's actually a practiced muscle, right?
Nice.
It's just
Yeah.
like anything else. It is a practice muscle. Yeah, giving gratitude every day, focusing on the stuff that I have rather than the stuff that I have not. And money is still the thing, and it's probably because that might be the thing that I only ever saw my parents fight about was the lack. So if it comes to business, if it comes to life, whatever, when I start to see a shortage in some areas, and I start to freak out a little bit, right? And I've gotten better at this because the freakouts, that might be a little bit of a dramatic statement, but yeah, but to me it is because I don't like it. I don't like having that scenario in my life. So I'll call it that. I'll call it the most negative thing in the world. That way I just get this bad taste in my mouth about it. And then I can make a shift. Right. So I take a look at that and it's like, how long can that freak out last? Right. And sometimes I catch myself like it was maybe 8 months ago, because in the process, everyone's like, oh, you're going public. This is great. And it's like celebratory. Like, do you have any idea? It's like, you don't know like the stuff that went on like behind closed doors trying to make this stuff happen. I mean, I was excited. It was like 2 weeks ago, I signed my personal name to the last $1 million in debt to get this latest acquisition. Going public means I'm never going to have to do that again, like put my own assets on the line for something like that. It's literally all in. Like, that's the name of my show. That's the theme of my life. It's like I'm throwing everything in. And 8 months ago, I came the closest ever, having all these new employees and everything, to 2 days away, 2 days, man, from not being able to make payroll. And what I had recognized, because the freak out that I'm referencing probably happened like 6 weeks prior, because I could start to see this, and I'm good at strategy, good at future casting, and seeing it's like, there's going to be a problem. I can see that it's going to come because of some of these things. So we need to make some shifts. And I started like pulling back on stuff, but then every single day started focusing on what I didn't have, on the lack. And it took me 2 weeks. And it's like, even right now, it's like I want to vomit as I say that, right? Because it took me 2 weeks to get to the point to where it just clicked in my head. Right. And there's things I fully believe that you have to have surrounding yourself, both people and other reminders, other anchor points in order to bring you back to reality, bring you back to who you are. And one of the things is actually up on a black, it's a black glass dry erase board. Right. And it says, I have a $10 million company. And I wrote that in September of last year. Yeah. So when this happened, right, I had gone from like 1 to 5 million in a matter of a year. And I'm like, that's cool, that's great. But now I'm like, there's these hardships, right? We're doing this, and we came 2 days away from making payroll. It took me 2 weeks, and that was one of the anchor points. When I looked up, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, you take the moment and look in the mirror. It's like, take a look at what you actually do have. Like, no joke. It's like, what do you have right now? What resources do you have? Who do you have surrounding you? How have you gotten through this before? And you start to come to the realization in those moments where it's like, huh, I have all that I need. I have everything that I need in front of me. So then the way, and people ask, how do you stay so positive? And it's like, when I recognize that, when I have all that I need, every single day, you do all that you can do. And that's it. As long as you recognize that you have all you need and you show up every day doing all that you can do that day, that's it. You'll get another day tomorrow, and you'll get another day the next day to do the exact same thing. And when you're consistent in those disciplines of just bringing everything you got to every single day, there has never been a scenario to where it has not panned out for me.
I like it, man.
Even 2 days away, dude.
Yeah, you tap into a different part of yourself. It's like the whole, the Goggins talks to the fact of like, whenever you think you're at your most, you're at like maybe 40%.
Yeah.
You're still holding 60 you haven't tapped into. And most people don't get to the point of having to tap in, or they don't take that next level and step into it, which I love, because the whole work I do is all around identity. It's who are you? It's not what you have, it's who you are with what you have. And I love the mentality you're having, because I think the people I talk to, you interact with on a daily basis, there's this part of them that is almost like searching for a good enough excuse, or like kind of like I want to say like your acceptance of the fact that they can give a little bit less energy. Like it's too hard. Oh yeah, it's going to be hard. So yeah, that's what. And all those things, the way I look at it is I go, you're never going to fully know unless you've given all of it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to give all of it without a full definitive guarantee of success. That's the thing people struggle with. That's what I battle with my youngest son right now. It's like the whole idea of Cain and Abel. If you understand that story, it's like Cain and Abel, God said, give me all of your thing, right? And I'll give you my blessing. Abel gives all. And God says, thank you. And my son, I thank you so much. And Cain goes, I want to give you this much, but I want the same praise as Abel. God says, that's not how it works. And so Cain, being pissed, he didn't get all of God's grace, because he wanted to get 100 with only giving 80. So Cain figures, well, if I just kill Abel, then I'm going to be good, right? So he kills his brother. But the idea is like, you can't give some and get all. You got to give all. And it's not just like all it's your energy, like you said, give everything you got. Because when you actually do that, I don't know people that give everything they got and go, I gave everything I had, and it never ever worked out. Like, no.
Oh, I know.
You didn't. Yeah. Just, if we're being honest, you didn't.
Exactly. It makes you feel good though, doesn't it? Like in the moment. But that's coming back to victimhood, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Somebody who says that, like when they actually didn't, they know that they didn't, right? It's just, it's like the same thing about when you have an issue with yourself, it's a lot easier to point something else out in somebody else.
Yeah.
It's the same scenario, being like, oh, I gave everything that I had, even though you didn't. But your ability to say that releases you, at least mentally, from your responsibility in creating whatever shit pool you just put yourself in.
Exactly. Oh, dude, preaching to the choir on that one. I fully, because you know what it is I hate when people go, I've tried everything.
Yeah.
Well, you did. And if I can list one single thing, there's a possibility you didn't, right? Yeah, but I've tried everything. And once you start listing things, did you do that? No, this, no. I go, so you didn't do everything. You did everything that you know how to do or feel comfortable doing. Because I guarantee there's something that you know of The stupid balloons. My computer's doing things now.
Dude, that's great.
You notice that? If you
I
do, if you
did.
do like little finger
Yeah.
things,
If you're watching,
every
if you're
screen.
listening to this right now, you know, you're not watching this. These balloons just came out, these reactions. I've been noticing this on Zoom. I've been noticing this on Google Meet lately, right? But
It's
the funny thing is,
it,
dude, it never works for me. Like
oh,
everybody
well,
else, right? I can do the thumbs
yeah.
up and there's like nothing,
Well,
right?
did you upgrade to Sonoma? I think it's an Apple Sonoma thing. It's the new operating software.
Oh,
People think it's
wow.
Zoom. It
Okay.
ain't Zoom.
I thought I did. Maybe
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. I lost my train of thought,
That's
but
hilarious.
but yeah, it's tied to that idea of like there's things that you know to do that you won't do, or you don't have the ability to drop the ego enough to ask for help.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing, and so when anybody does that, inevitably they're successful. Like it's not even an accident. Like we talked about before, it's a certain part of your identity of who you are where you touch things, people go, oh, this guy, man, Rick's got the Midas touch. No, Rick's identity is designed in a way over a lot of time and energy to become the person he is. So the way that he patterns and thinks is just instinctual to him, and it's foreign to you. When you can level to that level, then it becomes the same. It's instinctual, it's natural, it looks effortless, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. It was built through a lot of time and a lot of action.
And trauma too, man. No joke.
Yeah.
That's I think that everybody who does things great in this world are people that also went through some of the greatest tragedies and traumas in their life.
I agree.
Yeah, it causes
Yeah,
a
100% agree.
yeah, and it doesn't have to be something like your dad dying like mine when I was 16. I mean, it could be anything. It could be the loss of a relationship, a marriage, you know,
Mhm.
loss of your dream job, right? Or an injury in the NFL. You know, just
Yeah,
anything. I mean, that's trauma, bro. You know,
it
and
is.
then those are the things that can cause the shifting points in your life.
Mhm. Yeah, they genuinely can. I feel like I was just talking, it might have been an earlier episode I was recording with somebody, and that was kind of the conversation. It talks at a point that like it's the adversity that shapes us
Yeah.
in ways that people don't understand. And then we talked a little bit more about how do you get kids to do that who are privileged and that whole conversation. But really, it's individuals. I have a
Take
painting in
away the
my
privilege.
studio. Yeah, you take it away because these guys
That's
struggle.
my kids, man. They work.
Yeah,
They work for money, right? There's stuff
yeah,
that I
same here.
gave them, and it's
Yeah,
things that they would normally buy. Like I said, here's something I will suggest to anybody, right? Especially entrepreneurs and business owners. It's a great tax
mm,
benefit, by the way, too. I'll put it that way, right?
mm,
Because you can give anybody under the age of 16. I think it's 6 to 16.
12. Yeah,
Yeah, it's something
like
like
12 to
that.
14,000.
Exactly, 12 to 14,000 a year, exactly.
Mhm,
But I didn't just like start sending them money to them because it started with each of them when they were 12 years old, right? And just like
mhm,
giving them the dollars every single month and be like, here you go. It's like, no,
yep,
you're doing this, you can do some work,
mhm,
right? You can come to my office, you can do certain things, you know, I don't care what it is, you know, even if it's cleaning toilets or whatever it is at that point, you can do
yeah,
something to earn this, you know, so figure it's like 20 bucks an hour and you'll work 10 hours a week. You know, that's kind of
mm,
what it came out to be. And also out of this money that you're earning, you can also buy your essentials. You can buy your hairspray, you can buy your deodorant, you can get some clothes that you want. Of course, I'm still putting a roof over your head, but that's it when
mhm,
you're saying like how to do it. Because my kids, let's be real, right? I'm a white dude, right? I'm a millionaire. My kids are privileged.
mhm.
Just bottom
I get
line.
it.
But that's the thing. It's like how do you hold that? Like I did not come from privilege. My parents fought
Same.
over money. My dad maybe
Yeah,
made 40K a year. My mom watched 5 kids in our house to try to supplement the income. You know,
mhm,
5 of other people's kids is what I'm saying. It's like I
yeah,
did not come from that. So
mhm.
understanding the lessons that I learned, it's like how do you help that with privileged kids? You take away the privilege in certain
Create it.
areas.
It's a
Yeah.
difficulty. Mhm. I tell my people, like, you can't rob your kids of their hardships, or I've told my son many times, I go, if you enjoy your lifestyle, you have to realize that you will never have this unless you level at a point where I'm trying to get you to be. And so for us, I don't give my kids stuff. Like, my kids lose stuff, they're gonna have like we'll buy them like cleats for sports, right? But my son one time lost a $300 bag of like baseball stuff, and he goes, "Oh, let's go get some more." I go, "Oh, no." So I was like, "Let's file a minimum," and I made him work the full 30 hours at $10 an hour, and now he's in college. It's thousands of dollars saved up, because he understands the value of money. And with my twins, like so. I'm the big in the same way, man. I think that people look at that and they go, it's difficult. But the thing is, that's a gift to them. That is a tool that they intangibly are developing so that later on when they leave my household, they can recreate or elevate in the lifestyle that they've been given. And that's what we're trying to do. I think when we, like you said, I came from nothing, you climb up. I don't want my kids to have to go through that stupid wave of like, let's say weak men make hard times make strong men make weak times. And, in that cycle, I go, you don't have to do that. Like, there's a possibility that we go, hey, this is how we're going to develop the men in our family, women in our family. We're going to do these things. And this is how we structure to where they're teaching them. So now you're actually having a genuine stepping stone to a higher place in life, but not if you just do things for your kids. Like that whole, what was that? Remember Dr. Phil, that girl comes on, her mom's giving her stuff. I think I should have $1,400. And Dr. Phil goes, I think you should get a job. No,
No,
she's
yeah.
crying. Dude.
Yep.
That's
cool.
what happens.
There's
And
a
you
lesson.
wonder, like,
Take away the privilege, right?
take it away, dude.
Yeah.
And I
I don't
mean,
mean to make it
not
sound like bad
rude.
parents either, because I believe that both of us are very good parents, And it's in those moments too, because it's like when a
Yeah.
kid's learning to walk, like when you're watching your 1-year-old, right, or an 11-month-old learning to walk, you're right there behind them, right, in case they fall, so they don't, you're holding your hand over like the end table in the corner so they don't like clock their head and cause a hemorrhage, right? That's the same thing with this too. It's like it was a couple months ago. My daughter got down to, I think it was like $5 in her checking account, and it was a week before she got paid again. And she's like, "What?" She's like, "Well, I kind of need some of this stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, so what do you want to do?" Like, I put it back on her. Like, I think I'll be okay. I can wait because I can stretch this stuff out that I have. Like, so I'm just talking like hairspray or something. She's like, I can make this work. And there's some other things. So she had to sign up for something else. And this was awesome, dude, because even out of all this, my kids will now register for things themselves. Like, they're in theater. They will go and pay that money, like the $400 registration or the application fee for the company themselves. And they don't even ask. Like, they don't, hey, Dad, can I have the money for this? They just go out and they do it and they take care of it. Like, she also joined a choir that I didn't even know about until 2 rehearsals into it. She's 16, right? Because she signed up and paid for it herself. I'm proud of my kids this way because they've learned these things. And even that she couldn't, because she had $5 in her checking account. She couldn't pay for it right away. So she actually called them and asked, saying, hey, this is my situation. Can I give it to you in a week and a half? Like, and that's the thing, that's asking for help, right? And they said, okay. But she also knows that if she didn't, like, if she took that step and they would have said no, then she could have also come to me. Again, that's the helping the kids learn to walk thing. It's like, okay, how'd you get here? Right? What did you spend on last month? Was there too many Amazon purchases, too much DoorDash, whatever it is, and then it's, sure, of course I'm going to help you with this. That's what I'm here for. I'm still dad. I get to, right? I get to do the things that I love to do and support you in these areas. And at the same time, I see you making good choices by trying to solve the problem on your own first.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. That's well done. I love it. Seriously, those are the kind of things that I like hearing, because it gives me hope for a great world, right?
Yeah,
Because
right.
that ain't the norm for everybody, man. A lot of craziness going on. I live in the Bay Area, and I'm in the heart of where all these people are just, running into Nordstroms and Louis Vuitton and busting windows and stealing phones. And it's like, golly, we are doomed in some areas. You see
Yeah.
that, and I hear what you're doing. It's like, we're going to be good. We're going to be okay. God willing. Well, because there are more people, I think, doing that. There is a different level, I think, because of like the time that we grew up, like our generation will call it. I think there's a window where we were subjected to just the right amount of non-technology prior to technology.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have the dance of being human and interacting with people, but also understanding tech enough to be able to navigate it well.
Yeah, right on.
And that kind of transition period, when you got good parents who can talk to it, we're going to have some pretty solid humans, which that gives me a little more peace.
I love it.
Yeah, I seriously do. Dude, I just realized we've been going for like almost 50 minutes, and
Good.
somehow, hey, time flies. You have fun. You talk to good people, man. I love it. You're onto some cool things. I want to ask this question. If somebody was to want to go down the rabbit hole of the work you do and find out about like everything you're kind of into, and or just kind of, get lost in the world of Rick, where would I send them?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best place, at Mr. Rick Jordan. Outside of that would be my website, rickjordan.tv. You'll find everything about what I'm up to on those. I mean, latest news, press releases, everything.
Cool. Yeah, I saw that. Actually, it's where I went to do my brief research of you. I was like, man, this dude's into some dope things.
Thanks, man.
I like it, man. And I appreciate your time, your energy, your focus. I appreciate you giving to your family, because the way I look at it is my duty is to be an amazing dad, because at some point my kids might interact with yours. And I want them to be like, God, Anthony did a damn good job with his kids. So thank you.
Dude, that's a great perspective. Now I want to get our kids together. For real.
There you go. I just care, man. I want the world to be great, and it starts at home.
Yeah.
I've always believed that. So now the last question, you can answer however you want, is what promise did God or the creator make to the world when they created you?
Oh, and they did. Oh, wow. That's an interesting one. So, what promise did God make to the world when they created me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I am the promise of resources.
Mm,
And
it's
this
good.
is something that took me a while to grapple with because of, I have a very spiritual background. God is my creator, period. I mean, that's like the end of the
Right.
story to me. But
Mhm,
when it comes to something like that, and we go back, this is full circle, man. Like everybody has a purpose on this planet, and the purpose is to be here for other people. I know
mhm,
that I am, like without a shadow of a doubt, the promise of resources for other people.
mm. I like that, man. It's beautiful. And that's, hey, man, at the end of the day, we need resources to thrive and
Yeah.
survive and all that fun stuff. So that's a good one. I've yet to hear that one. I like it. Good answer. I like that one,
Thanks,
man.
brother.
Certainly appreciate your time. Seriously do. I know you could be doing anything with your time, but you chose to kind of hang out here. Those who were tuned in as well, thank you for hanging out. You could have been watching cat videos or people doing backflips or bathtubs full of Cheerios. Who knows?
That's gonna be fun too,
But
though, right, brother?
yeah. But you guys hang out with us. So if you guys got some benefit from the podcast, do whatever it was. Like what action? Take an action. Apply that one thing. Also, if you know someone who could benefit from this episode in any way, share it with them. Sometimes you're too close to get words into their hearts, but maybe something Rick said can serve them. So share it. And outside of that, as always, make the most of your Awwshift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Rick Jordan signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Awwshift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.